Why do some campaigns look inclusive but still feel off? That question feels especially important right now. Brands are under pressure to connect more meaningfully, audiences are paying attention, people want to feel seen with more depth, care, and accuracy. At the same time, marketing teams are navigating tighter budgets, faster timelines, and growing reliance on AI. And that combination creates a real risk. More surface level marketing dressed up as relevance. So, in this episode of the Small But Mighty Agency podcast, I sit down with Marissa Nance, founder of Native Tongue Communications, to talk about what too many agencies still get wrong when trying to reach diverse audiences. We get into why broad multicultural marketing often falls short, why Marissa prefers the term microcultural marketing instead, and what it really takes to create work with more depth, nuance, and human understanding. Let's dig in. Welcome to the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you want to grow an agency to 7 figures and beyond without working more hours in your business, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Audrey Joy Kwan. I know what it takes to build an agency, including supporting an agency owner in selling and exiting. I also have a master's degree in communications, specializing in organizational development. My team and I have worked behind the scenes of multiple 7-figure agencies and have coached and consulted with over 150 agency owners. All this to say, when you join us on the Small But Mighty Agency podcast, you get real world experience and practical tips that help you work less, earn more, and lead with integrity. So let's go. Hey friends, today on the Small But Mighty Agency podcast, we're having a conversation that feels both overdue and perfectly timed. We're talking about what it really takes for agencies to authentically serve multicultural audiences, not as a trend, not as a campaign moment, but as a responsibility and an opportunity for deeper, more human work. And to guide us through this, I'm joined by Marissa Nance. She is the founder of Native Tongue Communications. After more than 25 years working on some of the most iconic content and brands of the last 3 decades, she's built a company dedicated to digging beyond the obvious and helping clients connect with their consumers at the deepest cultural levels. So let's get into conversation about how to better serve diverse audiences with integrity, depth, and a real cultural fluency. Marissa, I'm so excited to have this conversation today. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for shaving like a decade off the career. Because you know what, Grandma, every once in a while, the hot flash hits, and I love that you said 25 and not 35. Girl, keep going. We have started on the right foot.
I think it's important to share just the number of years you've had in working on multicultural content, PR, media, all the things, because you've seen how much this landscape has changed. And I think that plays a big part in the conversation. But before we go there, let's go back to your remarkable 3-decade career in agencies. You were once in house. So, what was the moment when you knew it was time to build your own agency?
I don't know if I thought it was time or I began to suspect someone else would think it was time, and I wanted to control my life's path and narrative. I was at Omnicom exclusively my entire career. I am from Cleveland, went to school at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and started my career at BBDO in media. I was in media buying, and there was a small, very nascent group of one person who was my boss for many years, and that group was in charge of branded entertainment and custom content. And because I had studied film and communications in school, I thought I'm going to pivot from this media buying thing over to this more creative branded entertainment thing. And that's where I landed and spent, as you said, 25, 30 years of a career at Omnicom, helping to launch, create, produce programming like Survivor, Top Chef, the Biggest Loser. We worked on a film called Castaway with Tom Hanks. FedEx was our client, so we helped integrate and write all that went in there. That was FedEx. So that was a wonderful run. And as I said, toward the end of that Omnicom career, I just, that little voice began to say to me, are you feeling the same appreciation and respect that you had felt these oh so many years? And trust me, I am a I'm a Midwest girl. I like biweekly checks and benefits. So for me to say, maybe I leave and start this on my own, it was a big deal. But I did January 1st, 2019, and we're still here.
You focus on multicultural content, you focus on diverse audience, you focus on creating content that is meant to showcase the deepest cultural levels. How did you get into that? Is it your lived experience that shaped the way you approach what you do now? Give me more insight into why culture, why diversity, why is your agency focused on those aspects of marketing?
So I'll say a couple of things. The first I'll say is the majority of my career at Omnicom actually was not focused necessarily on multicultural cohorts and communities of color. I've won awards marketing to non-Hispanic white men ages 18 to 24. And I am not any of those things. So I very much had a depth and a breadth to the types of audiences that I wanted to connect to. But one thing I've always said is the title of my memoir will be The Only Chip in the Cookie, because there were many times that I was it in terms of cohorts of color in a room in the spaces that I occupied, not just at the holding company, but beyond throughout our industry. And in my brain, I always said, if I ever have that decision making capability and authority, I want to make sure that I bring more of a variance of voice, is what we like to say at Native Tongue, to the conversations, to the audience, to the way we present work. Because I do believe a lived experience, as you so eloquently put it, is important. Is it the end all be all? No. As I said, I've won awards for audiences that don't look and sound like me. But when you have a lived experience, it allows you to lean into authenticity, and that's the superpower, right? So I can find an organic and authentic connection just about anywhere because my own lived experience dictates that that's what I seek. So at Native Tongue, we were honored to win an award for a campaign we did in Korean. You know, we work in French Haitian, we for Caribbean, we work in Spanish, Japanese, Korean, Tagalog. We really not just literally but figuratively are native tongue communications, making sure that we speak and see in terms of how people want to be spoken to and seen.
You know, you're working with many different cultures in your agency. And since you've been at it, there have been a lot of changes in our landscape. So, when you look at the multicultural marketing landscape, what's the biggest shift you're seeing compared to maybe 5 years ago?
Cyclically, having done this for decades now, there's always been an in and out in terms of approaching cohorts of color.
Hmm.
So people have talked about multicultural for a long time. And what do the kids say? It's cringe to me. That word multicultural has always felt very cringe to me. I don't like it as someone who lives within that universe and identifies within that universe. So one of the things that we've done at Native Tongue and I felt strongly about is we don't necessarily speak about multicultural. We speak about microcultural. And there's a reason I want to talk about that based on your question. So, microcultural for us means we dig deeper into the insights. It's 26. So, we have far too much data and information, quantitative points of data to marry with our qualitative insights that are culturally resonant and based, the foundation of our work, while DEA and I has been accosted, let's say, and really begun to be taken apart in so many different places. What we recognize is one, we're not in the world of DEA and I primarily. We do microcultural marketing, meaning DEA and I, by the way we define it, is an internal conversation that works within your workforce and helps them feel seen and heard so that they can amplify not just your brand and your company, but also do the best job possible because they feel like they're a part of a collaborative ecosystem. That's DEA and I. What we do is marketing. We are a profit center for our clients. And I think that's an important distinction and so many people are getting it wrong. So the full circle answer is DEA and I has been really taken apart, accosted. People are vehemently saying we don't want to have anything to do with it. Well, that's your workforce. I would think everyone wants to have something to do with what we call microcultural marketing because that's a profit center. And in today's world, we need to understand our consumers at the most micro of levels so that we can get their engagement and that we can get that profitability that I've never met one client who says, I don't want to be profitable.
As you were speaking, I was taking notes. And I do want to go back to something you said about multicultural versus microcultural. When we think about multicultural, it can be very limiting, right? Because multicultural can mean, like, I'm Asian, right? And so multicultural can mean Asian as one group.
As a monolith, which it should not be.
Right, a monolith. So within the multicultural group of Asians, there are microgroups. For example, I myself identify as Cantonese. There are different cultural aspects to how I was raised, the language, the food, the understanding. All of that is very different than someone who may have been raised in another Asian culture, whether it be Japanese or Korean. I want to dig into that because I think some people might think, well, what's the real difference between multicultural and microcultural? And I think that's what you're really tapping into is this deeper understanding that culture has its nuances even in groups.
That's exactly right. Yes, 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 yes.
How do you approach marketing when someone says to you, well, we want this marketing to resonate with Asians? What's your approach to that?
So you said so many great things. I'm going to come back rapid fire and you keep me on track here. First, I want to say, and I think you were alluding to this, culture does not equal ethnicity, does not equal race, does not equal gender, does not equal culture. So once you begin to respect and understand that, then you can move to the next phase, which is so if I want to understand someone with a level of respect and understanding in culture, that doesn't mean I'm speaking to them in race or gender or identity. It means I'm speaking to them in how they feel here. Culture is here, right? It's not external. Culture is an internal thing, and we have to respect that. And that means I have to take the time to study and understand who that person is, not just stop at the color of their skin or where their family says they're from or the language they speak. That's disrespect. We don't do that at Native Tongue. So if a client comes in and say, and I want to also say to you, we've had clients come in and say, we have a multicultural budget. We want to reach African Americans, Asians, and Hispanics. Can you imagine? I don't even know what to say when someone says that, right? Because that's a waste of your money. If you came in with $1 million budget and you wanted to market that way versus someone who had 10 grand and was willing to listen and said, I want to dig deep and I want to find a unifying thread, that red thread that is culturally based, not ethnicity based, not gender based, not culturally based. I'm going to have a bigger resonance and return an ROI on that 10 grand because I approached it the right way. I thought about it. I did the research. I created these audiences that I know it will resonate with versus the $1 million that just lumped across because I was identifying by gender or race or ethnicity. So I would say that to a client who dared to come in and say something like that. Microcultural to me means don't be lazy. I said this on a call the other day and people were offended when I said and lazy may be a trigger word. And if it is to anyone listening, I apologize. And maybe it's me being lazy. I need to find a better word than lazy. But I refuse to have anyone on my team ever stop at the easy point of audience conversation and connection because everyone can do that. Marketers, and I may have said this already, marketers are at their heart, a good marketer is an anthropologist and a sociologist.
How would you explain that? Why similar to an anthropologist and a sociologist?
Because if you stop marketing at, I have a brand and I want to sell pieces, parts of that service or product to someone, and I see people buying it because maybe they were served my digital ad or they saw something in mobile or they were driving down the street, that's lazy marketing. What's not lazy is when you stop and say, who really connects to this brand? Because I don't want a one off purchase. And then tomorrow they're going to just be impacted by another ad they were served by my competitor. What I want to do is establish a relationship with a consumer. I want to build allyship. And the way to do that is to get in their brain. So you don't stop at externally who our audiences and consumers are. You have to get inside who they are. You have to find their hearts and their minds. And that's when you begin to shift from pushing messaging out to pulling consumers in. The North Star for every single marketer out there is not pushing messages out, but pulling consumers to you, being so incredibly interesting and resonant that a consumer says, I got to learn more. I want to learn more. I have to learn more. So, as an anthropologist and a sociologist, then I've done the research, I've done the digging, I've found that one thing that I know will make that person, that audience say, hey, this is something that I want to know.
I want to just stop there for a second because you defined anthropology and sociology as important functions in marketing because of the depth with which they understand cultures.
That's right.
One of the key things that makes me want to lean into marketing, even though I know I'm being marketed to, is feeling understood. The core value here is how well do you understand the microculture that you are marketing to? Understanding is also about empathy, it's about understanding what matters to that culture and building a bridge. And I think that's what's important right now in marketing when people are more conscious that this is marketing, I'm being marketed to, I'm being sold something, it's so much easier to just tune that stuff out. And whether you're doing multicultural marketing or microcultural marketing, that foundation is research, data, getting into the community and experiencing that community. Those things matter to marketing more than ever.
It is a human touch, dare I say. So 3 quick things. So that's why microculture was so important to me. I've trademarked that word because we all should dig a little deeper and be respectful of our audience. 2, you've hit the nail on the head. The secret sauce is empathy. And so it's not stopping at, I just see the outside of you. I really want to know the inside. I want to know how you tick, how you think. And the last piece of it is, interestingly enough, many times a client will come to us and say, we want to reach an audience of color, so we're here. We will reframe after taking what their goals are and then doing the research in and around creating an audience. We've reframed many times and said, what you don't necessarily want an audience of color. We've created this new cohort and audience for you by definition. It includes people of color, but we've actually also included women of, or we've crossed over and said it is very specifically Hispanic men and African American men together because they both have this propensity to think this way with these subtle nuances. So, and even at times women, we've said, no, we don't think this is just for women of color. This is actually just a broad based female conversation, people who identify as female, but we're going to go a little older. What you didn't factor in is age, and let us show you the facts that we base this on. So now we're going to go females, but this age group, and this is our new cohort and audience, our microcultural cohort and audience that we're going to appeal to. Again, not simply based on ethnicity, race, or just gender.
That's very insightful in how you navigate the data to understand who the content really speaks to. Let's navigate this conversation to talk about DEAI. So, diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. In your perspective, how does marketing play into these initiatives? As a marketer, how are you looking at DEAI right now?
Yeah. So I firmly believe that marketing and DEA and I are actually two separate conversations. And someone says, well, anytime someone tries to overlap the two, that's when we get into trouble. What my agency has done is what I feel to be kind of common sense, which is while they're two distinctly different, they're symbiotic and have to live together. So we've created a proprietary algorithm that is a bridge between the two. So the first thing is we just really have to realize they're two different and distinct conversations. They have to live with each other. There's a bridge. If you don't have a variance of voice and understanding internally at the beginning of these conversations, you will not authentically resonate with your end user. And we know by just the state of the way the population is made, we have to understand these various cohorts, by ethnicity, by gender, certainly, beginning there and then drilling down to microcultural. So where people are making a mistake is they're universally saying, well, DEA and I is scary. It's politically bad right now. We're going to step away from it. It will have a negative impact on their profitability, period. We just know that. The data tells us that over and over and over again. The moment we commonsensically take a step back and say, either we enforce, teach empathy. I don't know how you do that, but if you figure it out, let me know so that we can have a homogeneous start of our conversation. My entire marketing team can be, look exactly the same. They can all be X age, X gender, and X ethnicity or race. But they're empathetic, which means we're successful in reaching all sorts of people. I've never seen it. I'd love to see it. If we can find that, that's great. I don't think it's going to happen. So we have to have a variance of voice. We have to have people that look and sound differently and breed empathy internally through DEA and I so that we can then use that bridge, that algorithm like my company has created that then numerically shows you through data how to take that empathy you've created internally through DEA and I and generate profit through microcultural audiences. So DEA and I internal empathy, bridge it with the algorithm equals microcultural profitability for your company.
In marketing, you are going to have a much better campaign if you can understand the makeup of your audience. And to think that there is no diversity in your audience and to not consider it is very archaic to me because we live in North America, we live in a diverse environment.
The population number. Just look at the just data, look at the population numbers.
I hear what you're saying that while DEAI is politicized right now, and there are a lot of initiatives that are getting, for the lack of a better word, canceled, that doesn't mean that the marketing itself can turn the other way and ignore the audience.
But that's what's happening. That unfortunately is what's happening. Budgets are being cut, audiences are being ignored. And we've seen versions of this as I started at the beginning of my 30 years. Do I believe once we see profitability start to be impacted, that people will then once again say, oh, yeah, we need to think about DEA and I, or at least how we're speaking to audiences and work those budgets? Yes, maybe. Here's where the outlier is and where we are in 2026. And that is there's AI, there's technology. People are universally being laid off in these industries. So I've never lived through anything like this, right? This is different. How we navigate these outliers, these new realities that we have to deal with, like the technology that is impacting our industry widespread.
Yeah.
I haven't quite figured that part out, but I do know the population's not changing. If anything, it's growing in the same consistency and the same population markers that we've been seeing. So if AI thinks it can figure it out,
Mm.
I still think that empathy, that secret sauce, I don't know that anyone's figured out how to program that to the AI. So there will be a use for what we know how to do and what we know how to do well.
Yeah. It's very rare that I get into conversation with agency owners now and AI doesn't come up. Yes, we can't ignore that AI has significantly changed the landscape of marketing. However, there's that human connection that AI will never replace. How can we create more of that in marketing?
So the future of marketing should be what you just said. Currently, the short term, short sighted future of marketing is cost cutting and shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the AI and the tech comes in. And so I do think we are in for a rocky ride over the next few years, maybe even. What I don't believe is that it will prove to be as successful as once we begin to peek out through the gaps and show the difference in terms of results, because that's what it's all about, right? I'm the true Gemini, very creative, but I'm also what's going on with the result. Like, you have to balance these two things. And once we begin to peek through and show we have better results when we are approaching consumers through human led, empathetic, authentic, resonant conversations versus the short sighted yet cost controlled AI or tech you're using. That's when maybe we'll see a breakthrough and a little light will shine.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out what makes the most sense to have AI support in agencies and what makes sense for humans to continue to own. I think we're still in that lane of trying to figure that out. And I think what that translates to is cost cutting. I don't know if we should be looking at it as cost cutting, more about optimization, because like it or not, we're going to be using AI to optimize. Like it or not, we can't avoid that. So, what can AI optimize and where can humans really continue to play a role? Because we know that the bots, they don't have the human touch or judgment.
Optimization would be optimal. Right? How about we say that? I do believe, unfortunately, though, instead of approaching it that way and looking at it as an optimization tool, too many are taking, and again, I'll find a better word if I trigger someone, a lazier way and say, but wait a minute, we're already in a rocky economy right now, and this is a cost cutting mechanism that I can use, and I can put this much money back on the profit side of my balance sheet. I'm going to use it that way. And so it's a gut reaction instead of the long term fix of optimization and thinking it through carefully in that way. People are taking the short term fix, which is, oh, this is a cost cutting mechanism that I need now. I know I shouldn't think of it that way, but I'm going to use it this way right now in the short term and I'll come back around later. That's what I've heard some people say. And that's very dangerous, in my opinion. So it'd be great, again, if we could get folks optimally to optimize versus short term cost cut.
Do you see AI playing a part in microcultural marketing and supporting the work that you do or other people who might be doing marketing work to microcultures?
Yes. So my team, we are very research intensive, right? So I remember going to the library and pulling out, looking for the library card. Where's this book in the library? Matching the code, finding it, doing, with the highlighter in the book in the library and studying and figuring out how to write a paper that way. My team does a lot of that. We really dig in and we pride ourselves in knowing more about any audience you want to reach than anyone else in the industry. It's great to be able to leverage some of the AI tools for optimization of our time as a resource because now we can cut in half, the time it took us to dig through all of that information. It comes to us and then we can start parsing through it. And it absolutely is time saver, which by the way is a cost cutter for clients because instead of me coming back to them with 20 hours of work that I'm charging them, it's 15 hours of work. But so that's absolutely, at least short term, a quick answer for you.
Now, I want to leave the audience with a practical takeaway today as we close. What's one thing a small but mighty agency could implement this month to be more inclusive and more culturally informed, or even more intentional in how they see diverse audiences?
Well, I love how you took the words out of my mouth, and that's intentionality, right? So if you say, what I have found, small and or larger agencies, everybody's looking for a new way to bring in revenue, right? We're all getting hit. And so a lot of agencies are now stepping into a space that we had a lot of equity and ownership in and saying, "Oh no, we can do that too. We can do that too." And then they do what the client asks of them, they present it to the client and the client is in dismay because it's filled with stereotypes, it's filled with tropes, it's filled with shortcuts because no one had a seat at the table to say, let's not look at it this way. So if you want to make an impact, go back to the variance of voice we started with. Make sure that you are feeling the empathetic connections to the audience you're creating. And once you do that and you begin to build a conversation in and around them, you'll find that resonance, you'll make that connection, you'll build those bridges. That's what clients want. That's what clients find valuable. That's the offering that you can take to the table.
Marissa, this is such a powerful conversation. I'm so excited that we had the chance to sit down and do this today. Now, if people were looking to connect with you, where can they find you?
Well, they can always find me at nativetonguecommunications.com. A little long, but very simple, native tongue communications with an s.com. We also have our social and YouTube channels. You can find me, Marissa Nance, across social as well. And a little secret that is coming out right here on this podcast is I have my book coming out.
Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to the book.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me at the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you hit the follow or subscribe button in your podcast app and share it with a friend. I'll see you on the next one.